Hello, people. And I also just don't. It just have some days. Anyway, it's a cold, wet, rainy day here in Minnesota. And it is the anniversary of the Battle of Shiloh today. Well, the second day of Battle of Shiloh. I was going to do this yesterday, but never got around to it. Because I'm lazy sometimes. Anyway, but yes. I thought I'd recommend a few books on the Battle of Shiloh and those who are in it. And then some. First, a few basic notes on the battle. It took place April 6th to 7th, 1862, Tennessee, Hardin County, I believe. Commanders of the forces on the Union side, Grant, General Ulysses S. Grant, yay! And the other guy, Don Carlos Buell. Yay. Anyway, on the Confederate side, it was Albert Sidney Johnston, and on the other one is PGC Beauregard. I have to look it up. I'll get it wrong if I don't. So those are the dues of the forces fought. The units fought was the Army of the Tennessee, led by Grant, the Army of the Ohio, led by Buell, the Army of the Mississippi, led by Johnston and Beauregard. Let's see, the strengths of the different armies. The Army of the Tennessee had over 48,000. The Army of Ohio had over 17,000. The Confederacy, Army of Mississippi, had over 44,000. The casualties, overall casualties was on the Union side was over 13,000. 1,700 killed, over 1,700 killed, over 8,000 wounded, over 2,000 captured or missing. That was the Union side. On the Confederate side, the casualty list was over 10,000, over 7,000 killed, over 8,000 wounded, and over 959 missing or captured. That's just a general rundown of the aftermath and who was in it and where and the wherefores. I have so many books crowded all around me. It's going to be a miracle I get all this done. And this will probably be a little longer than normal, only because, well, it's the Battle of Shiloh. But anyway, first book, which is probably the better of the two books that are primarily about the entire Battle of Shiloh, is this one. I like this book. This was very good. This was a very good book. I would recommend this one highly. I mean, let's see if I find some decent pictures here that might show up. That's Albert Sidney over here, who would unfortunately get killed at the Battle of Shiloh on the first day, and some accounts by his own men by accident. And of course, it's Grant. I mean, they were losing. The Union forces were losing the first day. I mean, Grant unfortunately made a lot of mistakes on the first day. He didn't have trenches made. He didn't just that. He made a lot of mistakes, but he also admits a lot of his mistakes in his memoirs. I do have. They should have. Well, the Confederacy. Some of them say, well, they should have been defeated on the first day. Well, they weren't. Unfortunately, they didn't realize who Grant was at that point. Grant didn't believe in surrender, and he didn't believe in defeat. But yes, Albert Sidney was killed on the first day. The Confederate General Beauregard took over. The Union Army almost annihilated the Army of the Tennessee and the Army of Ohio hadn't gotten there yet. Buell was still somewhere up north. It was almost a near run thing, as the one book calls the Battle of Waterloo. Well, they could have lost. They really could have lost. The Union really could have. It could have been a terrible defeat. But Grant the next day said, "I don't think so," and won. But it is a fascinating battle. The personalities, the conflicts of the generals, the personalities. I said, I have no place to put into my books. I am crowded. Gonna figure out some place to put my stuff. All right. Another book on Shiloh. It's okay. I like him as a writer. I do. I just like the other book better. There's nothing wrong with this one. I like this one. I just don't like it as much as I like the other one. For some of the major personalities, Let's see, I'll see you can see it very well, but some of the personalities. That was these some other personalities. Some people fought in it. I mean, it has kind of almost a few more better pictures than the other one does, but not by much. But I mean, I do have Ken Burns's big old Civil War book to my left here, but Henry Morton Stanley in his Great White Hunter uniform was a private in the rebel army at Shiloh. So that would be him over here, Stanley. Stanley and Livingston fame. D.L. Moody was also at the Battle of Shiloh, but he was in the Red Cross at the time. I think it was called the Red Cross. It might have been called something else. But let's see. Some other decent pictures. I'm only using these book pictures only because this one has better photographs. I don't know if you can read it very well, but anyway. That's the basic Battle of Shiloh. They're both good books. I just like the first one better. I think it's better detailed, better written, more interesting. This is the Army of the Tennessee. This is Grant's army before he became, the complete general of all forces during the Civil War. But this is the Army of the Tennessee. A good book. It's a hefty tome, but it's a very good book. Now, I picked this book most of all because it's both Grant and Sherman. I'm reading this one. I'm still almost done with it. This talks about their beginning, their birth until the end of the Civil War. I think it's a very good book about their lives, about who they were, about their friendship, about their personalities, about their conflicts with those around them. They did have a great friendship. It is why they won the war. Because they worked so well together and they trusted each other. And they liked each other. And genuinely they did like each other. But yes, this is a very good book. This is a very good, that's not too big, because I don't think it is anyway. Both of their lives, of their conflicts. This is Albert Sidney Johnston, who also fought in the Texas War of Independence, and I believe and I haven't read this book. This is supposedly one of the better books written. I think where I found this book, but let's see. Major biography of an important general who served the United States and the Confederacy and Texas depicts a man who commanded through the high-bred courtesy which gained him an affection for all who came near him. He was probably one of the better Confederate generals. When he was killed at Shiloh on the first day, it was over. I mean, he was one of their better generals in the Western theater. Beauregard just wasn't Johnston. He wasn't Albert Sidney Johnston. He was not that good. And it is very possible if Albert Sidney had not been killed on Shiloh, maybe they could have won. But I have a feeling they wouldn't have, because it was Grant. Grant was not going to lose. He did not like losing. But anyway, this is supposedly a very good book. I've read good things about it. Let's see. It is unusual for a man to have fought for 3 republics. Johnston's rank of general officer in each of these 3 which he served is even more remarkable. Graduate of the United States Military Academy, Johnston had a long and varied career before the Civil War. He served the United States Army before he went to Texas, and was commanding general of the Texas Army, and later Secretary of War of the Republic of Texas. After participating as a volunteer in the Mexican War, he again entered the United States Army, and was stationed in California as a regular general when the Civil War began. Johnston resigned his commission, returned to Texas, and joined the Confederate Army with the rank of full general in the early part of the war. April 18th, he was killed while leading his troops against Grant's invading column at Shiloh. It is thought that he was killed by friendly fire. It is believed that he was killed by friendly fire. He was not killed by... I'm going to put this stuff underneath. Okay, now on to Beauregard. The problem with Beauregard was, he was very pro-slavery, like most of the Confederate generals. But he was a rampant, staunch slavery pro guy. But this book is pretty good. It's short. It's not very long. But he really... I had nothing to like about the guy because he really was not a very good general. It was more out of personality and more out of Jefferson liked him. Jefferson Davis liked him. So like a few other generals that Jefferson Davis just could not get rid of. Yeah, I can think of one. Let's see. Oh, well, we're older. Oh yes, I know who it is. Nathan Bedford Forrest. You can say whatever you want about him after the war, which was all bad. Even though he did repudiate the KKK. He was a brilliant cavalry officer. There's no doubt about he was a brilliant cavalry officer. Maybe not as brilliant as Mosby, but he was very good. He was an excellent cavalry officer. He wasn't a nice guy during war, but he was a very good cavalry officer. Okay, this is the Union Life of Phil Sheridan. Sheridan was an interesting character. He really, really, really had to work hard to become commanding in the cavalry. He really knew what he was doing when let loose by Grant to do his job as a cavalry officer. Grant really knew how to use the cavalry. Up until Grant took over, the cavalry really wasn't used like the Confederacy did. The cavalry by the Union was more or less just minor foot soldiers on horses. They weren't used very well. They weren't used very well at all. Men like Buford knew what to do. Union General Buford, Sheridan, Custer. Those two were not there, but Sheridan was in the Western Theater. Custer was still with still in the Eastern Theater, and so was Buford. Anyway, doesn't fall over. Let me mention a few biographies of other people that I've already mentioned that I think will also. This one on Sherman is pretty good. Sherman's memoirs are pretty good. I like Sherman's memoirs. I like Sherman. I like Grant a little bit more, but I like Sherman. Two books I would recommend on Grant is his memoirs. His memoirs. He's very honest about himself, and he's very honest. He tries not to criticize certain generals and certain people. He was very much against the Mexican War, but he did his duty anyway. He was a fascinating man. He didn't like to surrender, and he wasn't going to. He knew what he had to do to win the war. He basically said, "Look, Lincoln, you're going to have to not micromanage me behind my back. You got to let me fight my war. You got to let me win. You got to let me do what I have to do and get Halleck off my back." Halleck was a pain in the ass. He just was. He drove poor. He almost lost Corinth. Halleck almost lost the Battle of Corinth because Halleck doesn't know what he's doing. He literally doesn't know what he's doing. And Grant is trying to tell him you have to do this, that, and the other. And Halleck is not listening. But Grant. This is a must read for any Civil War historian. This book is probably my favorite, probably the favorite book of Grant that I like. It's excellent. I have several of Grant's books, but this one is probably one of the better ones of Grant. But yeah, let me see if I can have some decent pictures in there. That's probably always been my favorite picture of Grant. Everybody knows that picture. But he did. He was an unassuming, brilliant general who knew what had to be done. He wasn't like all the other Union generals before him. He knew what needed to be done. He really did. He understood. And he trusted Sherman. He trusted Sherman impeccably. He may not have always agreed with Sherman, but they always came from an understanding that they knew what their number one goal was. There's Sherman, and that's General Meade up there. But people keep forgetting that General Meade wasn't fired. He led the Army of the Potomac to the end of the war. He wasn't fired. Let's see any interesting pictures I'd show. Granted his old age and his retirement and everything else, he was quite a guy. He really was a very interesting man. People criticize him for his presidency, but really, his presidency wasn't that bad. He just didn't seem to quite understand, or I don't know. A lot of people just say he had a blind eye to some of the people in his cabinet who just were not honest. This is a well-known biography of a normal foot soldier during the Battle of Shiloh. Early in May 1861, 21-year-old Sam R. Watkins of Columbia, Tennessee, joined the Murray Gray's 1st Tennessee Regiment. He fought in all the major battles from Shiloh to Nashville. 20 years later, when a house full of young rebels clustered around about my knees and bumping about my elbows, he wrote his remarkable account of Company H. It's a good book. This is one of those memoirs of an ordinary foot soldier. This is just a somewhat short book of Lew Wallace. Lew Wallace, depending how you look at it, in the Battle of Shiloh, either misunderstood the orders or just something went wrong. And Grant tries in his memoirs to not criticize Wallace, even though he's convinced probably that Lew Wallace just didn't understand the orders. But Lew Wallace, who would write later, right? Ben-Hur, the novel Ben-Hur. This is him. This is the Lew Wallace, the author of the Ben-Hur novel. But this is not a very big book. This is a very short little book of his life, of his general and stuff. I haven't read it, but it looks good though. Let's see. A little chaotic back here. The novel, Jeff Scherer novel about the Battle of Shiloh, which I haven't read, but it's Jeff Scherer, so it's probably good. Battle of Shiloh, Blaze of Glory. This is part of a trilogy he wrote for the Western Theater. He also wrote one for Vicksburg, and he also wrote one for Chattanooga. What is the I think Chain of something. Let's see. Yeah, Chain of Thunder. Smoke of Dawn is Chattanooga, and Chain of Thunder is Vicksburg. So yes, excellent novel. Because I'm saying that because it's Jeff Scherer, and generally all his stuff is pretty good. Anyway, now I'm only mentioning these two other books because one, they're about the 2nd Minnesota and Brackett's Battalion, and I am living in Minnesota, and I can't say I'm from Minnesota because I wasn't born here, but I've been here since '92. But they didn't actually fight in the Battle of Shiloh. They kind of arrived late, but they were part of Buell's army. They were attached to Buell's Army of Ohio. Would be this book, Story of a Regiment, being a narrative of the service of the 2nd Minnesota Veteran Volunteer Infantry in the Civil War of 1861 to 1865 by Judson W. Bishop. Now, the other one is I find far more fun to read is The Last Full Measure, which is about the 1st Minnesota. But this is about the 2nd Minnesota. I mean, they arrived after the battle, but I'm going to mention it anyway because I am living in Minnesota. And, got to give Minnesota his props. The other one, they mostly what they did was they did the telephone lines. They not telephone lines. The telegraph lines. They weren't actually in the battle. They sort of helped Buell on his way. They reconnoitered, blah blah blah. Not a very historian term, but eventually what they actually would end up doing would be sent here, the Dakota Uprising of 1862. Sorry, 1862. So I have written a commentary about the Dakota War of 1862. This is more or less where they really became into historical prominence. But as I said, I'm mentioning it because I do live in Minnesota, and that is where I am, and I have to at least figure out some way to put Minnesota into my history things. Now, yes, I do have the Ken Burns book. I can't find any decent pictures of the Battle of Shiloh. Not in this book, and you think I would be able to, but I can't. Nothing is, there is a map, but I'm not impressed with it. Let's see if I find anything else. I mean, I pretty much, I think I got most of the books of people about the Battle of Shiloh who were there. Oh, no, I got that one. I got the Sheridan book. I mean, yeah, I don't know if you can see this very well. I'll try to stand up and go. Sorry. Still trying to navigate my way through this weirdness. Come on there. There we go. I don't know if that gives you an idea of the Battle of Shiloh. That was the first day. I mean, the first day, they were completely caught off guard. The Union forces were completely caught off guard. Grant had made many errors. He didn't do an entrenching tool. He didn't make any entrenchments. He really was not prepared. Mainly because they don't think he actually knew they were there. I think he thought they were somewhere else, like Corinth. But anyway. But the battle was interesting. I mean, it shows, one, yes, Grant was caught off guard, but he quickly ascertained the situation and said, okay, and did what he could to not retreat and not lose. I mean, Beauregard, when Johnston was killed and thought he had won the battle, telegraphs, Jefferson Davis, hey, we won. Yeah, the next day, they were retreating because Buell had finally showed up. Civil War is so fascinating. The personalities, the characters, everything about it is so fascinating. And this one's a little longer than I thought it would be. Well, actually, it's about 21 minutes. That's about where I thought it'd be. But yes, I have. I got to put all these books back where I found them. What a problem to have. But yeah, I tried to find other books on the Battle of Shiloh, those involved. But I don't think I have anybody. I mean, I have books on the actual. Well, this little book about the entire Civil War. It does a pretty good job talking about the different battles. I would recommend this book if you want to study the different battles, the different personalities, and this, that, and the other. And it does a good job of talking about the Battle of Shiloh, of course. I mean, let's see if I find this one else. I want to repeat what I've already said about it. At least about the casualties, anyway. Let's see. Come on. It does a good job, though. Let's see. Number of men under the arms and casualties are never ascertained exactly. Grant spoke in general terms of 33 effectives, with never more than 25 actually fighting. Buell thought he had 25,000, with 20,000 engaged. The official records have there was 44 plus thousand present for duty, including non-combatants. The Army of the Tennessee had over 1,500 killed, over 6,000 wounded, over 2,000 captured or missing. Total casualties 10,944. Brigadier General W.H.L. Wallace, not Lew Wallace, of course, was mortally wounded. General Grant and Sherman were wounded when Grant's horse fell on him. And Brigadier General Prentice was captured. The Army of Ohio had 241 killed, over 1,000 wounded, 55 missing. Total casualties over 2,000. Total Union casualties were 13,047 of whom, 1,754 were killed. The Confederate losses were estimated at 1,700 killed, 8,000 wounded, 959 captured. Major General Albert Sidney Johnson and Brigadier General A.H. Gladden were killed, and Major General W.S. Cheatham and Brigadier General C. Clark and B.R. Johnson and Colonel William were wounded. A lot of generals were killed and shot and wounded. But anyway. I mean, I do find the Civil War fascinating. It is my second favorite subject. First, Second World War, the American Civil War, and then everything else after. And I'm almost at 25 minutes, so I'll stop. And as I said, read the memoirs of Grant, the memoirs of Sherman. Those books there are other books on Grant and Sherman I could recommend. There are some better than others, but I do find the Brand one very good. I like that one. The Sherman one, there's another one I can't find, but the one I recommend is very good. His memoirs are very good. Before I end this. Okay, people, I hope I wasn't too boring or too boring. Behave yourselves, because you know I'm not going to. Please comment, share, like, subscribe. Later, later. Later, later.